Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. Today we are here recording episode 78, taboo conversation topics and conversation topics to avoid. So this will be, I think, a very useful episode for anyone who is traveling or wants to become more of a social butterfly and have a lot more conversations with people. Maybe want to think about some things some topics you may want to avoid when talking to other people. Now, I think it is worth saying, though, most of these conversation topics we'll be mentioning. I think if you're good enough friends with somebody, you can probably discuss some of them, depending on the culture where you come from. But as a good rule of thumb, I would say try to tread lightly on some of these topics. And I think this episode will also help some of us become a little bit more culturally aware and culturally sensitive. So I think it should be a very enlightening episode for all of us. And I'm curious to see what my amazing co-host and my good buddy Jared has to say today. What's going on, Jared?
Hey, Chad. Hey, just out of curiosity, how much money do you have in your bank account right now?
Not very much. Why?
I'm sorry. That's too personal. That's too personal. What do you think of this whole, situation in Syria and Israel right now? It's crazy, man. What side are you on? What's your side?
Pretty crazy. But,
what's your side? Come on.
Not gonna say.
Just some light conversation. These are some examples.
Those are some pretty good examples.
Bad conversation starters.
Hey, Jared, do you know how much do you weigh by chance?
Oh, excuse me.
You're looking good, though, buddy. That was supposed to be a compliment.
In some places, it's actually not completely offensive to maybe not ask how much do you weigh, but to say like, oh, well, look at you there, Chief. Anyway, please follow us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast, Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1. That's where I post songs of the pod. And then retweet stuff and then just, tweet random things that come out of my mouth or out of my thumbs, excuse me. Or you can email us, untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. And, tell us whatever it is that you need to tell us. Tell us your untranslatables. You can do that on Twitter as well, to be honest. Email us. Tell us some of your favorite travel stories. Or you can always spread a little love and give us 5-star reviews. That's what we love the most, really, is that. Spread a little love. Sorry, I need to set up my drop machine in its proper location. This is very unprofessional of me doing this now. Oh, man. So how's it been being back at and teaching?
Great.
Yeah,
absolutely
really?
Great. Yeah. It's been refreshing. It's been wonderful to walk into the classroom and see all my students' beautiful faces. Jared's cringing right now. Too much positivity for Jared, but
I
honestly, man,
shocked by the answer. Almost, I was like, "Wow, really? It's been that great?"
Yeah, it's been really fantastic. This week we talked about U.S. holidays and travel. So both topics were very, very fun for me to teach. And I actually made my students do the grunt work this week, and they had to tell me about U.S. holidays. So I gave each group, I put them into groups of 2 to 4.
Favorite style of lesson planning.
That's right. So I put them into groups and gave them, assigned them a holiday, and we talked about them. And they became the expert. So I had the students become the teacher. So it was definitely a good time.
Do they just use like their? I'm going to sound like my grandfather right now. Do they just like use their like cell phones and stuff to look up stuff about the holidays?
Yeah. Okay. Basically. And if I had more time with these students, these are the first grade students I teach, and I only teach them for all of our British listeners out there once a fortnight or once every other week. So I don't get to see them that much. So what that means is I have to really condense my lesson plans, because if I don't cover it in a lesson, I have to wait 2 weeks till we can go over it again. And I assume usually
fresh every time.
Exactly. It's as good as forgotten if we don't do something in class. So it's been really great. The only thing I haven't enjoyed has been waking up early. It was so glorious being able to sleep in during spring break.
Yeah. It's not that I dislike being back at work. Work is fine. It's good. It pays the bills. I enjoy going there from time to time. It's just that now in these first couple of days back, it feels so boring. That's what it is to me, really. Where it's just like, oh man, I'm just sitting here
Right.
I walked 51.5 miles last week.
Right. Well, it's crazy, man. Nothing can really replicate the sensory overload and the excitement of traveling to different places, you know?
Yeah.
And once you get that adrenaline rush and then you go home, it's kind of like, oh, shoot. Well, here I am. All right.
I mentioned before I left that, like, for the days leading up, I was like, it was hard for me to focus at work. It's kind of been the same way for the days coming back, too.
Sure.
Maybe this is just a constant theme. I can't focus at work. Should take the hint.
Right.
But
you know
that's
what's
cool.
funny? When I've been teaching this past week, since it's the week after spring break, I've been usually when I come in the classroom, I have to kind of set up the computer and do all that stuff because I do a lot of stuff with technology in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And so while I'm doing that, I usually have the students give them some type of discussion question, right? And the funny thing is, I ask them, okay, discuss with your partners what you did over spring break. And then after talking to the students, some of them went to Italy and went skiing in the Alps, but it seems like the majority of them spent time relaxing at home, which is also probably what I would have done had I been back in America on spring break. But part of me, I felt kind of like an asshole when they asked me what I did because I could have talked about it for almost the entire class. I had such a good time with you and Don.
Made the class about you.
Right.
I'm glad you asked.
Try not to do that. Exactly. But you know what I realized we forgot to discuss on our last episode?
What's that?
Where were the last pictures I posted on our Instagram?
Plzeň.
That's right, good sir.
Had you already gone there the last time we talked? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I went there on Saturday and came back on Sunday.
So I remember before I left, you were debating back and forth with yourself and everyone around you whether you should just go home and relax or go to Plzeň.
Right.
And you decided to go, I see, according to Instagram.
Yeah,
Untranslatable
I did,
Podcast.
and I'm very glad I did. It was an absolutely wonderful time. Went to the Pilsner Beer Museum. Which was really interesting. And what was really fascinating is they had the labels of all the old Pilsner beers, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a time when the communists, overtook the Czech Republic. And what that means is they forced, Russian in schools and everything. And there should be a picture on our Instagram now. I posted it maybe 5-10 minutes ago.
I didn't see it.
And they had the Pilsner bottles in Russian. So it has that... what's the name of that alphabet now? Cyrillic. It has that Cyrillic style alphabet on there, which was weird to see. And then I also saw a label that was German. So that was kind of cool.
I did notice in one of those pictures, you posted a picture of some napkin or something that had a German phrase on it. And,
that wasn't a napkin. That was the label.
Oh, that's the label you were talking about.
That was the label. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Did they have like any sort of samples of some special Pilsners there?
So I think to do that, you need a tour of the brewery. So this wasn't a tour of the brewery.
There's like the
museum.
museum.
I didn't go to the brewery this time, but next time it's on my list. And thankfully, it was crazy, man. It was like a 4-hour journey. When really it's not that far. Like if you were in a car, you could probably get there in an hour and a half pretty easy. And so I realized though, I took the regular Czech train system, but there's this other train company that takes you, it's weird. It's a small train. It's like 2 wagons. So it's really small, but it goes from Plzeň all the way to Most, which is a little bit further down the train tracks than Chomutov. So next time I'll take that train and I'll get there in 2.5 hours instead of 4.
Interesting. Is that like just some specific straight shot train or something?
Yep, exactly.
Is that a popular route?
Well, my colleague at school, she's currently studying in Plzeň, and she takes it every Friday.
Oh, okay.
There and back. So,
okay.
So, I mean, it has to be popular enough in order to have them run it,
I think I'm constantly underestimating the Czech Republic. And you know what? That's on me.
And why is that?
I don't know. I think I just underestimate. I don't. It's not even an underestimation. It's just I don't know a lot about it. So there's like just a lot more going on outside of Prague. I sometimes I have to remind myself.
Oh, definitely. And I always feel guilty
I'm
when
an
I
ignorant
tell
American. What can I say?
Right. I always feel guilty when I tell my colleagues, like, I'm going to Prague again this weekend to visit my buddy David. And one of my colleagues was like, really? Again? You're going to Prague again?
Why does it bother them?
I don't know. I think, well, some of it, I think they're just joking.
Right.
But I think there is they're joking, but there's a little bit of seriousness to it too.
I'm sure.
But I mean, the thing is, like, Chomutov is great, but there's, in Prague, there's just so many cool things you can do that I can't really do here.
Right. It's very limiting.
Right. But anyways, back to Plzeň though, man. It was a great city. I have to say, I think I have had the best Pilsner Urquell there than I've ever had.
Well, that's how it should be, I guess.
Right. It's fresh. It was crisp. It was good.
Straight from the tap.
Right. Exactly. But
Walking
next time the plan is definitely the brewery. And then they also have this beautiful church right in the square. And I'm hoping to climb up the top of that church tower as well and get a view of the city.
Okay. Oh, I did not mention, well, I mentioned to you, but I gave the gift of the CD and the picture frame to my piano teacher. Whew. She was this close to tears, and luckily she held them back But so first I gave her the CD, and she asked me to read the message to her on the inside because it was kind of dark in there. I could barely read it. I'm not good at like reading cursive. Can
I stop you real quick and just explain the scenario to our listeners, because some of them might not know what you're talking about.
That's a good point.
So Jared was I think your piano teacher called you the messenger or the gift deliverer or something.
I was whatever it was. I was the messenger.
Exactly. And so Jared's piano teacher taught a very amazing musician and woman, Joanna Jenkins, back in the day. And now Jared is her student. And so when Jared told his teacher he was coming to Prague, your teacher was like, "Oh, you have to bring this present to Joanna." So Jared did, like a good little pupil that he is, and we met up with Joanna at one of my favorite little hospoda or pubs in Prague, and gave her the gift, and we had a nice chat. And she was such a great person to talk to, and she gave us a couple copies of her CD. I still need to. I have this really old stereo sitting next to me. I have to figure out how to hook it up, because I don't have a CD drive on my laptop, and I don't feel like buying one. So I'm going to hook up and there is thankfully a little thing for a CD on the top, so I'm going to give that a listen. But you were listening to the CD with your teacher, weren't you, yesterday?
Yeah, we listened to maybe 3 or 4 tracks of it, and it was good. I liked it, and I actually, I'm such a bad. It was a good gift. She loved the gift. I first gave her the CD, which had a little message that Joanna wrote for her on there. And then I presented the picture, and she's like, "Oh, this is such a great picture. I want one of these." I was like, "That's yours."
Yes. Like, oh no, I was just gonna show this to you and take it back home.
Look at this framed picture that I made for myself in Prague, just to rub in your face. Yeah,
weird flex,
I just
but okay.
travel with it.
Right, it's your new prized possession. I have to say though, man, that is a sweet picture of you and Joanna.
It is. Me and my piano teacher were talking about how it's crazy that she taught her like 40 years ago, because in that picture I look older than Joanna. That picture, right? It's like we look like siblings or something. Anyway, So anyway, what was I? Oh yeah, so I gave her the picture, and then we did listen to some of it, maybe 3 or 4 songs, and it was good. I liked it, and I thought of you when I was listening to it, because obviously, I know you have the CD. I was like, "Oh, you're definitely gonna like it." I could tell.
Oh, for sure. Speaking of blues, I forgot to mention this. I brought my guitar in for the first time at school this week.
Oh, and
I taught my students how to write a 12-bar blues verse.
Okay. Why did you do it for the first time with this semester instead of last semester?
I should have brought my guitar in like week 2. Now I realize, like, thinking back, I should have done all my lessons with my guitar. Maybe not that
rock
many.
style,
right? That would be great. That would be so funny. But so there was a deal. I told my one of my first grade classes. I said, "All right, if you guys all do your homework, one of the students said, "Will you bring in your guitar and play for us?" And I said, "All right, sure." And I was like, you know what? I'm not just going to bring it in and play it for you guys. I have a degree in music. I technically could be a professional musician. I've made money playing music before. I'm not just going to bring it in for nothing. So I told them, okay, if you want me to bring in my guitar, you all need to do your homework. And all of them brought in their homework. So they made their end of the deal. So it was time for me to step up and uphold my end of the deal. And so, but what I told them is I said, look, I can sing, but once again, I want you guys to do the work. So I said, look, you find a song as a class. Go ahead and decide. One of you can message me on Facebook what song you want, and I will learn it. Give me a week's notice so I can learn it.
That's pretty impressive. You can.
Yep.
You weren't there was you were pretty confident that whatever song they threw at you, you could get it in a week.
Yeah. Well. Here's the. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, Jared. But they gave me the song. The song was called "Bullet" by a group called Hollywood Undead. They're super popular with most of my students here in the Czech Republic.
Okay.
I had never heard of them before. But anyways, what's really funny though is I thought I was going to have them next week because I teach these odd even weeks for my first grade classes, so it's kind of confusing.
Every fortnight.
Exactly. Every fortnight, I teach these students. And so that was a horrible accent. Anyways,
It was, but so was mine. It's all
right.
bad.
But then I realized on Monday night or Tuesday, the day before I was supposed to play it, oh shit, I have them this week. Thankfully, the song is 4 chords. For those of you who are curious what the chords are, it's E, B, C sharp minor, and A. That's it. Those are the 4 chords. And so I learned the song within I listened to it 3 times, learned it within about half an hour, and brought my guitar in the next day and played it.
Nice. My soundboard is. I was trying so hard to hit it. I was like, damn it, I missed my timing. That's a. So how did they receive it? Did they enjoy it, or were they captivated by it?
I don't know if I would say they were captivated by it, but they were having fun. They had to sing. I mean, look, I brought in my acoustic guitar. It's not like I was like playing anything super fancy because when you're there up playing by yourself, the whole point is to provide, not only the chords but also a little bit of the rhythm. And so when you're a one-man band like that, it's hard to just like go off and do lots of cool solo-y stuff, But I also thank them, one, for picking a song that was fairly easy to learn, and 2, picking a song where I could bring in my acoustic guitar because I did not want to have to haul in my electric guitar and my amp and my cables.
That's very nice of them.
Right. And it was funny because the first request, at first, the students were like, play Back in Black by AC/DC. And I'm like, look, I know how to play it, but Back in Black by itself on guitar doesn't sound cool. You need the drums and the bass and everything else.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
So yeah, but it's been fun. I'm glad to be back. And shout out to all my students in my first grade class for being brave and asking for me to bring my guitar in. So should be happening more in the near future.
That's why you didn't bring it in, because none of your students were brave enough to ask. So
right. And I also do not want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guitar guy like in Animal House. The guy playing the guitar on his steps, and then Jim Belushi comes by and smashes it, right? I love guitar. I love music.
You've been that guy in college, though, for sure.
You think I have?
I don't know. Have you? I haven't been around.
Not really. I will usually bust out a guitar if someone asks.
Okay,
but I'm
so
not
you never
the guy
played like in the quad or anything like that?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Nope. I used to play on the porch at Fisk once in a while when the weather was nice.
All right.
But that was more just for me. But yeah, so I try not to be that guitar guy that's like your stereotypical like, oh, let me play a song for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
just always ready to like our friend at the hostel in Prague. That was very ready to break out into beatboxing.
Exactly.
Which is one of my favorite forms of music. Let's spread a little love before it gets insulting.
Too dark. All right. So, do you have any shout outs?
I have one, but you can go first.
All right. So this is a really, really crazy one. And it makes me a little sad that it's 2019 and this has just happened. But for the first time, the most prestigious mathematics prize has been awarded to a woman whose name is Karen Uhlenbeck. So Karen Uhlenbeck, who is a mathematician and a professor at the University of Texas, was awarded this year's Abel Prize, which is a mathematics prize modeled after the Nobel Prize. And in history, this is the first time the prize has gone to a woman. And what's crazy about this prize, Jared, is the Abel Prize is actually supposed to be awarded by the King of Norway to mathematicians who have greatly influenced their field. I didn't even know that, but apparently. And then there's a cash prize of about 6 million Norwegian kroner, which is approximately 700,000 US dollars. And the first prize was awarded in 2003. And Uhlenbeck is known for her work with partial differential equations. And what's interesting, though, is her decade-long career spans multiple disciplines, including physics, geometry, and quantum theory. So a big shout-out to you, Karen Uhlenbeck. Keep up the great work, and we're happy to see a lady being recognized for her intellect and talents.
Norway does have a king and a queen as well, it seems like. Harald V of Norway. Okay.
It's probably Harold V.
Yeah, there we go. That was embarrassing.
Oh, that's funny. Harold V of Norway.
At first, I thought maybe it was short like fun something, but I was like, no, that's just V. Then I was like, oh, okay. Maybe that's how he goes by, Harold V.
Hey, when you're a king,
Harold V.
You can go with whatever you want when you're the king of Norway, you know?
Maybe he was just trying to be easy on all the people that he knew wouldn't be able to pronounce.
Right. Good guy Harold right there.
So speaking of, anyway, my shout out, I want to spread a little love. So the World Happiness Report came out with their happiest country of 2019. And so I have a list of the rankings. And so I want you to guess what number one is.
It's a Scandinavian country, am I right? Parada. Okay. Ooh, is it Sweden, Norway, or Denmark? I'm sure it's one of those three. Or is it Finland? I don't know. Oh, man.
I'll give you a clue.
Okay.
It's one of those four.
Okay, so Sweden, Norway, Finland, or Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? I think the Danes seem to be a pretty happy folk. Is it Denmark?
Denmark is number two.
Oh, all right. So Denmark's 2. Sweden.
Nope.
Oh, so it's Finland.
Yep.
Okay.
So the top 5 are Finland, Denmark, Norway. Shout out to Harold in your country. Iceland and the Netherlands, which are not shocking. And I pulled out a couple that are close to us. Canada. Mm-hmm. Where do you think Canada is on this list? Happiest countries.
Oh, they're easily in the top 25. I'm going to go with number 15.
Top 10, they're number 9.
Oh, all right. Shout
Austria.
out Canada. Austria. Austria's probably 11.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Germany.
Okay. Number 12.
17.
17. Wow.
Czech
Okay.
Republic.
You know, that's a tricky one because I feel very happy here and I like the life here, but I hear a lot of Czechs complain about the Czech Republic. So I'm going to say somewhere in the 20s, 22.
Czech Republic is 20. One more, USA.
Okay. We're probably like 29, 30.
19.
19, really? Okay.
We beat out the Czech Republic.
Interesting.
And so the rank, I have the whole list, but we don't have to go through every country. If you want to know, email us on Translatable Podcast, and I'll tell you. Or you can tweet at us on Translatable1, the number 1. So they use 6 key variables that support these figures, and it's like well-being indicators. They call them income, freedom, trust. I assume that's like trust in the government and maybe like fellow citizens or something.
Right. That would make sense.
Healthy life expectancy, social support, and generosity. There you go.
Okay, interesting.
U.S. isn't as bad as people give it. People say it is.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm surprised it's that. I figured it would be lower, as you could tell from my guess.
I figured it would be too. There are. Oh, I'll give you. For example, where do you think Italy is?
15?
36.
Really? They're pretty far down there. All right.
Where do you, let's see if I can find some surprising ones real quick. Where do you think? Let's get some Asian countries in there. Where do you think Japan is?
In the 20s.
Not even close.
40s.
Not even close.
Where is it? I have no idea.
58.
58? Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I could see that considering, I forget what the word is, but there is a word in Japanese that means to work yourself to death.
I mean, don't quote me on this because this is a terrible, but I do think they do have a high suicide rate as well.
They do? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of factors that go into it. And there's a lot of the countries that that are lower down in the list are not necessarily countries that are, quote unquote third world countries or lower level countries, but a lot of them are more of the countries that are known for working a lot. Some of them are just, and also some of them are just, unsafe countries like, Libya 72, for example.
Right. Makes sense.
But yeah, it's a cool list. I like that. I like this kind of stuff.
But hey, shout out to Finland, number 1.
Yeah. For second year in a row also.
Oh, nice. All right. Yeah, Finland would be cool to check out. But the language, man, Finnish is crazy.
Is
It's a crazy language. Yeah, Finnish and Hungarian are both languages that they're not really...
So Finnish has no relation to like Swedish or Norwegian or Icelandic or something like that, or Danish. Okay.
Exactly. And that's the same with Hungarian. Hungarian really has no relation to the other Slavic languages, really. But yeah, it's pretty wild. That's for sure.
Do you have any more shout-outs?
I do. I have 2 more, and both of them are for our northern brethren and sisters, a.k.a. Canada. And
Sistren, that's the word you're looking for.
Sistren, thank you. So the first one I have is that there will be a hockey game against the Montreal Canadiens and Carolina Hurricanes, and they will actually be announcing the broadcast in Cree, which is one of the indigenous languages of Canada. So I think it's really awesome that, and what's also crazy is this will be the first time an NHL game has ever been aired in a Cree language. So I think that's really amazing. I'm really surprised this has been the first time that this has happened.
It's not surprising to me. That's not surprising to me.
Okay.
I think it's terrible that, Wait, so Cree it's spoken in Montreal?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and I should have done my research.
I'm sorry. I've just never heard of this language.
No, it's before. Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Right here.
But like if I were to turn on my television to watch this game, it would be in Cree, like they'd be speaking Cree.
I believe so. What it says here is live coverage of the Hurricanes Canadiens contest will air Sunday at 7 p.m. The broadcast will take place in conjunction with the Rogers Hometown Hockey Festival, which is making its stop this weekend at Enoch Cree Nation. Oh, wait, on Edmonton's western boundary. Iron, who's the guy who will be doing the commentating, who lives in Saskatchewan, will be joined by host Earl Wood and retired NHL player John Cabot, and they will provide commentary and analysis. And right here, Mr. Iron said, a lot of Cree-speaking people told me, you should one day maybe call a game in the NHL in Cree. And he said, now it's finally going to happen. So decades of experience prepared Iron for this role. He's a host of the Northern Saskatchewan radio station, and he has called many Indigenous hockey tournaments over the years and sometimes dabbles in play-by-play Cree during local games. So I think that's great. I think anytime a country supports the indigenous languages, I think it's really wonderful. And we need to do our best to try to keep these languages alive. And that is one way to do that. And what's also interesting is they mention in the article that this will hopefully influence youngsters who are watching the game to keep using the language and speaking it and realize that their language is important.
Yeah, I'm learning about it right now. I've never heard of Cree. It's spoken by about 100,000 people in Canada, in the northern sort of area of territories of, the northwest territories of Canada, to Alberta. Okay, Cree,
Exactly.
Cree.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're in Canada and you're listening to this, you want to hear a game in Cree, check it out. And my last shout out also goes out to Canada, spreading a lot of love today to Canada.
Yeah.
And this is the federal budget for 2019. Ottawa has pledged $4.7 billion in funds to address Indigenous issues. So I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Jeff Bezos.
That's true. That is true. But I think it's amazing that, one thing that they're promising to do is end all of the different, they have problems with drinking water. So ending drinking water advisories and different things. And they said as well, we know that building a better Canada must, by definition, include advancing reconciliation for Indigenous peoples. So I think that's really amazing, really thoughtful for Canada. And I think the U.S. could definitely follow suit with that.
Take note. For sure. But now I think my clock's ticking.
Ooh,
and it's
all
ticking
right.
with the time of untranslatables. I got a couple. I got two.
Nice. I also have two.
You told me you had an exciting language for me.
So
at least for you.
Yeah. Shall I give it to you?
Sure.
So this one is Korean.
Okay.
I have never done Korean before.
Okay.
So we'll see how this goes. And the untranslatable is Dabjong Nyo.
Okay.
Which see, that's the tricky thing. With this, there's really no direct translation word for word. But let me try to explain it to you, Jared, and see if you can get it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So say I go to my local H&M and I find another tank top that says laid back vibes on it. And I get it. Parada. And I'm super pumped about it. But maybe the color doesn't quite look good on me for some reason. And then I ask you, Jared, Jared, what do you think about my new laid back vibes tank top? And then you might say something like, well, yeah, I guess it looks all right. Right. But then I'm like, all right, really? Just all right. It doesn't look great. Doesn't look awesome.
By the way, I could never imagine you doing that. Really? It just looks all right.
That's it. That's all you're gonna say.
How does it fit on me? How does it lay on me?
Right. Spent hours scouring the H&M to find my laid back vibes tank top for this podcast.
That's all. Wow.
So what do you think Dabjong Nyo means, Jared?
It means like, give me more. Like I need more, almost.
No. Not
would
quite.
I be saying that, or would you be saying that?
I would be asking basically the Dabjong Nyo.
Oh, like a leading question. It's
not quite, not a lead. Well, kind of. I'll give it to you. So
okay.
What Dabjong Nyo means is basically it's a question that someone asks, but they already have the answer in mind what they want to hear.
Oh.
So the example that they used was when your girlfriend asks, "Does my butt look big in these jeans?"
Right.
Well, now depending on your lady,
yes,
that could be a yes or a no, depending on your lady and how they feel
you
about
have to know. You have to know the person because that could both be a compliment and insult depending on the person.
Exactly. So there you go. So for whenever you ask those questions where you already know the answer, Dabjong Nyo.
Yes. That is such a 90s, 80s, 70s sort of, does my butt look big? Because I think now in our era, the answer would be like, yes, and it's awesome.
Exactly.
Kids these days. My first one is Arabic, and it is dad eyes. There's a lot of E's and S's next to each other, and it's hard to... All right, here we go. El yet lesia min el shorba yonfok fil zabadi. And I'm sorry, by the way. That's first and foremost what I'm going to say. And then I'll tell you the literal translation is, he who burns his tongue from soup will blow in yogurt. And I put, he who burns his tongue from soup will blow in parentheses on yogurt. Because in is what they put, but I think on kind of makes more sense. He who burns his tongue on soup from soup will blow on yogurt.
Oh, man, I don't even know where to begin with this one.
I think this makes perfect sense once you hear it.
Okay. I mean, is it... but I guess I'm getting caught on the blows on yogurt. Why would you blow on yogurt if you burnt your tongue on soup?
Think about it. So let's say that you have a car and you were driving and someone rear-ended you, and you got into a minor fender bender. And from that day on, every time you got into your car, not only did you buckle up your seatbelt, but you put on a helmet, you put on elbow pads.
Okay. So it's being extra cautious, basically.
Right. It's saying that you've had one bad experience, so now every time you do something like similar to that, you're overly cautious, essentially.
Okay. That sounds like me in a nutshell.
Exactly. That's
why
I thought I liked it.
Okay.
and then that makes perfect sense to me. It's like, now that you've burnt your tongue on soup, which makes sense to happen, you're afraid of yogurt, which is always cold.
Okay. Yeah, now I see it. Okay. Okay. Interesting. That's fascinating.
Yes.
All right.
You're afraid of your ayran.
I love my ayran. Good. All right. So my last one for you, Jared, is Czech. Still have them coming strong. And this one is Natal Bachkori, which means he pulled on his slippers.
He pulled on his slippers.
Mm-hmm.
I need a hint on this one.
So say you got a really long day, right? You've been sitting in your office. Maybe you've had a stressful day at work. And then, it gets close to 5 o'clock, and you're like, you know what? I'm heading home. I'm pulling on my slippers. That's it.
Okay. It's kind of like take a load off, relax.
Not quite. I think you might be able to use it like that, but I think this one means more so like enough is enough. It doesn't matter because I've already checked out, or I've already kind of.
Oh, so you put off. Wait, what? How does it go again?
You pulled on your slippers.
You pull on your slippers while you're still at work.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
I gotcha. Mm-hmm. I gotcha. Okay, it's like, oh, I'm at work, but I've already pulled on my slippers.
Exactly.
I like that. That makes sense.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I think we all need to learn how to pull on our slippers sometimes.
At work? You think so?
No. In life.
Oh.
In life. You do that at work, you might not have a job to pull your slippers on.
We all need to learn how to
day.
check out at work.
Right.
I was like, okay.
Right. Here at the Untranslatable Podcast, we love to give great professional advice.
Yeah,
what to do
these
to
are
get
life
fired.
lessons. Stop paying so much attention at work.
Exactly.
Check out a little bit more. I have one more. It's Persian.
Oh, cool.
And it's Dalamo Sabun Zadam. And it means I rub soap on my stomach.
Rub soap on my stomach. Can you give me a hint?
So let's say we were, we mentioned that we were going to do the Maps Off challenge, but we couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And my Twitter and Instagram and email has been flooded with people saying, you rubbed soap on my stomach.
Oh, like you teased me.
Yeah.
Or you pulled my leg.
Kinda. I got my hopes up.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like I just picture someone sitting there with like soap on their stomach, like, all right, are you gonna wipe it off? Like, what are you?
I feel like I've been in this exact situation, except when people do that to me, usually I'm relieved. But like in that exact situation where you're like in the shower getting ready for something, and then you get that text, you hear it beep while you're in the shower, and you get out and it's like, sorry, I actually got to cancel. And it's
bummer.
like I literally rubbed soap on my stomach. And I did not have to do any of this.
Right. Okay. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. So speaking of rubbing soap on one's stomach, say you do actually get to go out, what not to talk about, and there are generally, obviously, like some things that you shouldn't talk about across the board.
Right.
Like, I think it's safe to assume. Well, I'm not even gonna say politics. Is politics one of them? I feel like in the UK people talk about politics more than we do.
Well, so at least from the American standpoint, when I was little, my parents told me the three things you do not discuss with people are sex, religion, and politics. Mm-hmm. But see, and I would say for the most part with people you're only acquaintances with, or you're just getting to know, maybe it's good to avoid those topics. But I think the problem with American culture is, especially with our generation and even the generations above us as well, because we didn't talk about a lot of these topics, especially regarding politics, it has made us really bad at having a civil conversation about it because we don't talk about it.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what makes it taboo, is the fact that we don't talk about these things that everyone experiences, and that we try to make it seem like, something sexual or something, whatever it is bad. When it's like, yeah, but everyone does this, or like someone being in debt is something that's embarrassing. Right. Or it's like, this is a very common problem.
But go ahead.
I have a couple topics that are my try to avoid topics. I'm going to start with my own personal ones.
The Untranslatable podcast is probably number one.
That's why we have Don, our social media influencer. He's supposed to do all the talking. The irony is, we can talk about him as much as we want on this podcast because he'll never listen to it. Money and work. I hate talking about money and work. It always seems boring to me. Well, money doesn't seem boring.
Don, that makes it very ironic because I didn't realize this about Don, because usually,
where do you think I got this topic idea from?
Right. Usually when I've been with Don, we haven't talked about work or money, and this was the first time I've seen him in a while. Mm-hmm. And so it was funny how much he talked about work and money. And, I talk about work in the way that, I love teaching. I'm very happy with my job, but I only talk about it a little bit. I talk about it probably more in this podcast than anywhere else.
Right.
But yeah, I never really talk about money.
Deep detail.
He does.
Yeah.
And some of it, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, yep, you lost me there, buddy.
And with that also comes, with the work talk comes a lot of like personal finance talk, like personal finances talk about like getting raises and how much you could make if you moved here or did this job. That a lot of that stuff makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, me too.
And as you said a second ago, I mean, it all comes from what you've been groomed to be comfortable talking about. Because my parents were never ones to talk about money, and always found that to be kind of not cool.
Right. And I didn't even know my parents, like, their salaries until way later in life because of the same reason.
I never did either.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would never ask, but maybe when I was a little kid or something. But yeah, I don't either.
And it's interesting, though, that you don't even ask your close family members things like that.
Right.
But I think that's cross-cultural, because I think in Asian countries, they definitely don't ask. It seems like in the Czech Republic, you also, at least, I've never really had a conversation with people about salaries. The only conversations I've had have been with my fellow teachers, and how we all complain and we say that, teachers need to be better paid in the Czech Republic, which is not a reflection of our own individual salaries, but just a reflection on the state of the country. I mean,
that's a broader conversation.
Exactly. And when you go across the border to Germany, teachers make double or triple what a teacher in the Czech Republic makes. And our listeners out there might be thinking, oh, well, the standards of living in the Czech Republic are lower in terms of cost, which is somewhat true. But at the same time, I don't think that means that your teacher should only be making, maybe $1,000 a month.
Right. No, that makes sense. But that's an argument that I think happens in a lot of cultures too. I mean,
definitely.
We have these same conversations here in the U.S. About teachers' salaries. Another one for me that's uncomfortable is sexual stuff makes me uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. People making sexual jokes to me, especially people I barely know, that makes me uncomfortable. And the last one is Well, here's the deal. I don't have a problem talking about politics or religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's not worth it.
Right.
That's probably more what it is. So, like, I'm not in politics or religion. It doesn't make me uncomfortable, and I'm not but it's not worth it to me. Is most of the time is really what it is.
Right. It's really funny you mention that because I have talked more about politics and religion since I've moved to the Czech Republic, I think, than ever before. And I think one, it's because people in the Czech Republic are curious what my opinions are as an American about American politics, so it gets brought up more. I think that's one reason.
And isn't the level of religiousness in the U.S. also kind of foreign to them?
Yeah, well, yeah, but there's, at least at my school, I have more students that are Christian than I thought.
Okay.
But a lot of them, it's interesting. I had a talk with a student the other day. A lot of them don't like to say that they're Christian because there's a lot of judgment. It's funny. It's kind of like the opposite in the U.S. where I feel like there are a lot of people who are very Christian, and when you say, oh yeah, I'm atheist or agnostic or I'm not Christian, people kind of give you the side eye and they judge you. I think it's the same here, where if you tell someone you're a Christian, they're like, oh, you're so ignorant, believing in God or Christianity. And I'm of the belief that, believe in whatever you want to. Who am I to judge you or tell you what you can and cannot believe in? And I also think, like, I had a nice conversation with a few of my students, and they're Christian, and, I was baptized and raised Christian, but I would say that I'm more or less agnostic, but we were still able
baptized?
to have... Yeah, I was baptized.
That's so stupid.
Yeah. Were you not baptized?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm saying it's stupid for you specifically because I don't think... Have you ever, been at church?
I've gone to church. Of course I have.
With your parents?
As an adult, with my parents.
Not as an adult, but not even as an adult. Let's say since 6 years old, how many times did you go to church as a family, the three of you guys?
When I used to live in Ypsilanti, until we moved to Dexter, I went to Sunday school every Sunday.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
I thought you never went to church.
No, I went to Sunday school every Sunday, and then when we moved to Dexter, I went to church a couple of times.
Listen, I'm sorry.
You're learning all sorts of new things about me tonight, Jared. But see, here's my other thing. I'm also a person where I think you can still be a good Christian and not have to go to church.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think all of that stuff is, it's all just about money.
Right, yeah.
At the end of the day. So that's why I don't like to talk about religion.
Sure.
Because then this happens.
Right.
I remember I was I was visiting Don in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and my flight was out of San Jose, which I believe is maybe like a 45-minute drive, and I took a Lyft. And the Lyft driver asked me at the beginning of the drive, within a couple minutes of me getting into the car, what I thought the meaning of life was, and
oh wow, that's quite a loaded question.
What I think happens after you die, and I was like, listen, and in my head, I was like, I just got into this car,
right?
And in my head, I'm like, excuse me, in my head, I'm like, I can tell you, but I can't. First of all, I've had a perfect 5-star rating on Lyft for years. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to ruin it for your dumbass.
Right.
And so, I kind of eased into it, and then I just, it's more like a, believe whatever you want, man, kind of situation. Okay. Hey, man, we're all here living life, man. But I was like, whoa, bro, what kind of Lyft ride is this? This, it made me uncomfortable.
Okay.
I would rather the person sped down the freeway going 110 the entire way without a seatbelt on.
Right. No, I see 100% where you're coming from, but I think if you put yourself in the Lyft driver's shoes, do you know how many probably boring conversations he has?
Well, that's the thing. I guess I'd prefer that over. I hate it when Lyft drivers try to talk about either weather or traffic, especially traffic, because I was like, bro, this is your job.
Right. But see, here's the thing. I think in America, those are very normal conversation topics. You talk a lot about the environment in which, you're in,
My dad can't help but avoid talking about the weather every time I talk to him.
Oh, jeez.
And
That would
every
drive
time
me
he
nuts.
brings up the weather, I kind of roll my eyes. And he tells me what it's like in Louisiana and asks me, I'm first of all, if I want to know, I can just look it up on my phone. And there's
Right.
also like, you live in Louisiana, there's like two different options. It's either hot and rainy, or
hot.
or mild. Like, okay,
Right.
like it's. Tell me when there's a hurricane.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God! What if I
that's the-
said that next time he brought up the weather? Tell me when there's a hurricane.
He'll never call you again. He'll never call you again. It's funny though you mentioned that, because I think that in a lot of countries in Europe, they do. It's funny if you ask at least Germans and some Czechs as well, they'll tell you they don't do small talk. And I think to some extent that's true if you think about small talk the way we do it in America, which is usually you talk about the weather, you talk about some like recent event, like, hey, did you hear about Michigan State beating Michigan 3 times in basketball this season? That
Right.
would definitely be something I would bring up.
Which you did.
Oh, I definitely did. And I will bring it up again and again. But, and so I think in America that's very common, to say, oh, yeah, let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about very easy, light things that are kind of boring, but usually won't offend anyone, right? But
Although
when I've been to...
Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
But when I've been to Germany, it seems like usually we don't talk about those things. Like a lot of people ask me, which is also kind of an easy question, but like, oh, what are you doing in Germany? And usually if we're speaking in German, they always ask me, why do you speak German? Why
why is your
American
German
speak
so good?
I love that question. One of my favorites.
Well, that's the difference I've noticed is that that there's the stereotype, because it's true that a lot of Americans start conversations with "What do you do?" which is true, which is kind of not is the word uncouth thing to do in the Europe
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
Europe.
yeah.
I use this fancy word and I say the Europe.
No,
Is,
uncouth.
Yeah, uncouth to do in the Europes. Is it? Yeah, it's uncouth to do and. But I think that's what I've noticed in you mentioned that a lot of people ask you, why is your German so good in Germany? I've noticed a lot of conversations that we had, a lot of sort of small talky conversations that we've had with other people in Europe when I'm around, and I assume this happens when I'm not around too for you. Is that a lot of conversations are about differences in languages, differences in like the way like we speak or words and stuff like that.
Right.
I feel like we've had a lot of those conversations with people.
Oh, definitely. Well, the other thing that I've noticed is German small talk is politics is not taboo in Germany. I've been asked numerous times by people who I've just met, what are your thoughts on Trump?
Yeah.
And things like this. And the cool thing about Germans is you can really give them your opinion. And if their opinion is different, they don't take it personally, which I think a lot of Americans need to learn from, because...
Yeah, but it's easy to say for that because they have no reason to take it. I mean, it's not their, they're not...
Yeah,
why
but
would they take it personally?
I've talked about German politics and stuff like that too, and they don't take it personally.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So, yeah. So I don't think it's that they don't take it personally. I think that Germans are not afraid to talk about politics. And the funny thing is, small talk in Germany tends to be deeper conversations, I think, even if it's just someone you don't know very well and you haven't met. And my tip for all of our listeners out there who are learning German or are going to Germany, one of my favorite questions to ask to Germans is, what is your favorite thing about Germany? It's always fascinating to hear what they have to say.
What kind of interesting answers have you gotten that stick with you?
A lot of Germans have told me. Well, you should appreciate this one, Jared. A lot of Germans have told me the quality. The quality of German cars. So you were pretty close. Yeah. Germans have told me that. A lot of Germans have also. I've had a few Germans tell me.
Yeah, it's very efficient.
Well, they're really proud of the fact that their country is fairly multicultural, which I thought was an interesting answer. And then
That's
another one that I've heard too
I don't know if
is...
I 100% agree with that, but okay.
I mean, it depends where you are in Germany. That's for sure. But the other thing too that I've heard as well is... this is kind of a loaded answer, but I think a lot of Germans are proud of their different traditions, their beer tradition, their literature and poetry traditions and things like that.
Yeah. some of their traditions. Yeah.
Right.
No. Well, yeah. I mean, I get that. I get that. And there is like this fine line, but especially in Germany, of like being proud of your stuff and also, not getting nationalistic with it because they're very aware of that. I guess for obvious reasons.
Right.
So I have a couple examples of some do's and don't topics for other countries. For example,
perfect.
Italy, Chile, and Canada and Japan, to name a few. So I want to go through some of their some topics to avoid for sure, and some topics that might be good conversation starters.
Great.
And
Let's do it.
I'm lucky. I feel lucky that I found Chile because I know you have a friend there.
I do.
And you would like to visit him one day there.
That's
you've
right.
mentioned.
Shout out
We'll
to
start
my
with
buddy
Italy,
Robert.
So some welcome topics of conversation.
Can I guess a couple?
Of course.
I feel like a welcome topic in Italy has to be food and wine.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe
And with
also
that-
art.
Yes, of course. Art, opera, and film.
Okay.
With the food and wine, though, it's bigger than that. I think it's a hospitality thing. So,
okay.
it goes with the whole being a good host kind of thing.
Okay.
Is that, but the food obviously goes with that.
Right.
They're very proud of their architecture, which I
Okay.
guess goes with the art,
Yeah.
and soccer, of course,
Of course. Yeah.
and current events. They like current events, but nothing derogatory about Italy.
Okay.
Do
Makes
not
sense.
say bad
Which
things
is
about
kind of
Italy.
funny because I feel like some countries definitely shit on themselves. Like I've heard a lot of Czechs complain about the Czech Republic. I've heard a lot of Germans complain about, the complexities of German bureaucracy. So it's fascinating.
Americans love to shit on America.
Right.
I think that's a very common, but some countries don't
Right.
like that.
Right.
And especially anyway, some topics to avoid. Can you think of any specifically Italian topics to avoid?
Well, I would assume avoid stuff about World War II and Mussolini,
Yep. Do not talk about World War II.
which is the same with Germany. I think a lot of tourists go to Germany and they like want to talk about World War II with the Germans, and they're like, why the hell are you bringing this up, man? Like,
Although it's the complete opposite not the complete opposite, but the U.S. is obsessed with World War II.
well, of course we are. We won World War II. Of course we're obsessed with
And
it.
according to Treptow Park, so are the Russians.
Right. So definitely not Mussolini in World War II. Italy is a very Catholic country, so I'm assuming
Very
you don't
good.
want to badmouth religion.
Don't talk about the Vatican.
Right. Probably don't want to mention abortion, I would imagine.
Yeah, that probably goes along with religion. But yeah, they say
Right.
avoid talking about the religion, or why do I keep saying the like that? Religion, the Vatican, and its policies.
Okay.
Which is it's a very probably constantly rich source of things to talk about because there's always some new scandal.
Yeah, true.
Don't talk about the culture, so don't talk about
Like negatively.
Of course, yeah,
Right.
and don't talk shit about local soccer teams,
Okay. I
And
guess that
don't-
makes sense.
and no overly personal questions about job and family.
Okay.
So, like,
Interesting.
don't ask
Okay.
too much questions about people's families if you just met them, which I think is not really the case here in the U.S. I think it's a completely normal question to ask, like, "Are you married?" Or
Definitely.
I think that's not a weird question.
Right.
And sometimes I can imagine it making people uncomfortable, especially as time goes on in the U.S. Because that whole sort of concept of marriage, I think, as we move on, becomes very slowly, but a little bit more stupider and stupider of a concept. So that that automatic question of asking, "Are you married?" I think sometimes gets a little dumber.
Right.
Chile.
I think it's also how you ask it, right? Like,
Yes.
because I think
Do you have
for
a
some,
husband?
right. I think for some Americans it might be too
What
forward
does your
or too
husband
direct.
do?
Right.
Something like that.
But it's weird. There's a lot of cultures, I think, where some cultures it's okay to talk about family. Other cultures it's deemed too personal. So it's good to know which countries, what personal things can you touch on in a conversation and what
Avoid it in
can't you?
Italy. Yeah.
Right. So let's hear about Chile.
Chile, yeah, Chile.
Chile.
So this will be good for you. Keep this in mind because you'll be there at some point.
Taking some mental notes as we speak.
So we'll start with some good topics to. Of course, any country outside. This probably goes for just about any country outside of outside of the United States, except for maybe India, where you could talk about cricket.
Okay.
But sports is always going to be a topic. But, obviously, South America, soccer is going to be a big topic.
Oh, for sure.
So soccer is a great topic. Also, popular sports in Chile include skiing and fishing. I did not know skiing was big in Chile.
Yeah, they have mountains there, the Andes Mountains.
I knew they had mountains. I guess that makes sense. If their mountains are gigantic, so why would they not have snow
That's
there?
the crazy thing about Chile, man. You can go to the mountains and go skiing, and then
go to the
a couple
rainforest.
hours go to the beach and chill on the beach.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it's kind of like California.
Right.
Let's see. Pointing at others is considered rude. Of course, pointing at others.
Right.
Oh, however, pointing at things is acceptable. Okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Literature is an excellent topic. Geography, landscape, lakes and vineyards, food and wine. They're very proud of
wine
their food
is
and
very
wine.
popular in Chile. And
Yeah.
It's good wine, too. I've had some really good Chilean wine.
Some definite topics to avoid. Can
Can I take a stab?
Yeah.
So also Chile is a very Catholic country, so you don't want to badmouth the religion. We'll start there. I would like to think in Chile you probably don't want to be super critical and talk shit about the country. Am I right?
Yeah, they're very proud people. Do not talk shit about Chile.
And then another one that
but they say even though not only do they say don't criticize Chile, but they say you might find that locals do.
Right.
But don't fall into that trap. That's not an invitation for you to, because they're
It's
still
a trap.
very proud of it. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Another thing too, at least I remember my buddy Robert telling me that Chile and Bolivia are pretty big rivals. So you might not want to say like how much you love Bolivia if you're in Chile.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, it actually says that here. Very good.
There we go.
It says it's best not to mention the countries surrounding Chile, so don't even mention Argentina, Bolivia, or Peru.
Right. There you go.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like us Michiganders don't talk about Ohio.
Don't talk about Ohio. Unless you're talking shit about Ohio, then you can make some great friends in Michigan.
That's true. I just came from that shithole Ohio. Oh, yeah, they suck, don't they?
Right.
Don't
Let me buy you a beer, man.
You want founders? Don't discuss human rights violations and the Araucanian Indians. So I assume that's like a native people or something.
I would think so, yeah.
Avoid any discussions about, as you mentioned, religion, but also class. That's
I've heard in Chile there, I don't know if there still is a problem with it, but I remember my friend Robert telling me there's like a really stark
classist sort of society.
Yeah.
It's advisable not to bring up wars and politics. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Usually don't bring up the war unless they won it.
Right. I think that's fair in most countries.
Yeah. Canada. Let's talk about Canada real quick.
Let's do it.
You want to take a guess? You've been surprisingly good at this.
I try to be a cultured man, Jared. What can I say?
So we'll start with some good topics to talk about in Canada. Of
Hockey
course.
for sure, and I'm sure landscape and geography because it is beautiful in Canada.
Yes, same, yes. Their travel, they like discussing travel a lot, international travel. So
Nice.
I think Canadians are considered travelers, big travelers. So that's a good topic that they like to talk about. And it's not just hockey. I mean, obviously hockey is like the sport of Canada.
Right.
But they say it's also safe to talk about soccer, baseball, basketball, golf, and tennis. So I think they're just a very sport-heavy country.
Right. Makes sense. Also,
Sorry,
curling should be on that list as well.
Really? Oh, they don't have curling on this list.
But it should be, but yeah.
Interesting. Another good topic. Do you want to take any more guesses? These ones are kind of interesting to me.
Another good topic. This is gonna come way out of left field, but I'm gonna say I think there are actually there's a decent country music scene in Canada. So talking about country music in Canada might work.
Well, they do say music, but they don't. I don't think they specify country music on this. Talking about music, art, and culture of all types is common in Canada, and the coast of Canada have remained true to the European appreciation of the arts. And that's actually that's very true. They have a lot of, Canada's known for having a lot of different sort of art and music festivals.
Oh, definitely.
And it's a huge sort of film festivals, all those things. It's comedy festivals. It has a whole bunch of festivals there, and it's a very popular location for that. Another one that was surprising to me is this one. Canada has excellent shopping in large cities, both on the east and west coast. So it's always a fun topic to talk about shopping in Canada, which seems interesting to me because I don't picture Canada as, say, like a sort of materialistic country
like we are.
Right. But shopping seems like it can be a good topic if you're in some of those probably bigger cities, obviously.
Right.
Some definite avoidances.
Don't confuse Canadians as Americans.
Yes. So don't mention it as inferiority to the U.S.
Okay.
But they say just in general, it's probably safer just don't talk about the U.S.
Yeah, probably a good call.
But they definitely say, I mean, obviously they highlight, don't talk about how Canada's like, as we like to say, the United States little brother or little sister or something like that.
Right.
Interesting. With a lot of these topics we hit in Berlin.
Okay.
So our small talk with our Canadian friend got a little spicy, I think. Well, this was also because she was from Quebec, wasn't she?
Yeah.
They say don't mention Quebec's separatism or other possible conflicts between the French and English Canadians. We talked a lot about that.
We did.
Comparisons between Canadian and U.S. healthcare system. We talked a lot about that. Surprised that that's a topic to avoid because it seems like it's pretty unanimously thought of, at least outside of the United States, that the Canadian system is better than ours.
Right.
This is a funny one. Any inferiority of the Canadian dollar in comparison to the U.S. dollar? Okay. I mean, they're pretty close. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Now I'm like trying to stick up for Canada. I was like, relax, guys. You don't have to be so self-conscious.
Right.
We don't mind. Religion in general, although Canada is very tolerant to most religions. So I'd probably scratch the religion one. I'm not going to say don't start with it, but at least to me, Canada seems pretty tolerant as far as religions go, and they don't seem to be like heavy into any religion there. At least as far as I've noticed in my small wanderings through Canada,
right,
and my limited knowledge of Canada. So that's and there's one more I wanted to mention was Japan. Mm-hmm. Japan had a couple interesting ones that I found. So now they have the obvious. I mean, this one's not surprising. Don't talk about earnings. That's kind of obvious.
Yep.
One that I found very surprising because this is a common topic in the U.S. Can you take a guess?
What did you study in college?
That's
Parada.
That's exactly what it is. Some foreigners might be surprised at the rate of high school to higher education continuation in Japan. Some Japanese opt to go to junior college, shorter-term colleges aimed at specializing in a specific career, and few opt to work right after college in jobs that do not require college degrees, like any country in the world.
Right.
Although graduation in one of the top universities provides a special status that separates one from others, most Japanese do not attach any relevance to a person's character by the college education. See, that seems like kind of a contradiction to me. See, that kind of seems like they're saying that much like a lot of European countries, even though college even though college is an option, it's not sort of the same obvious requirement as is, not obvious requirement, but it's sort of the same stepping stone as it is in the U.S.
Right.
Where there are more specialized schools that are just as not looked down upon in comparison. However, what they kind of hint at here when they say, though graduation in one of the top university provides a special status, is something that we touched on before, is where I think there's still a class thing to it.
Yeah.
To where it's like
definitely.
You can still have a fine career and make great money without it, but there is almost more, rather than something that provides you a better job opportunity, it is just like more of a status thing to say you went to college.
Yeah.
Even if it's not providing
sure.
you with necessarily a better career.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Now, go ahead.
I got a couple for Japan as well.
Please.
So one that I have been told by my aunt who is from Japan. She said that one thing that I found very interesting is, in America on certain holidays, it's common to wish everybody, happy blah blah blah, right?
There's a war on Christmas.
Right. But in Japan, it's considered kind of strange to greet someone with like Happy Father's Day or Happy Mother's Day if they're not your parents.
Oh.
So I think that's pretty interesting.
Sometimes I feel like people in the service industry take a little too are a little too presumptuous with their Happy Mother's and Father's Days that they throw out to the point where that might cross over to offensive to some people.
Yeah, I would agree.
That makes perfect sense to me. I do find it weird. Maybe if I'm like, because I've noticed it. I'm with my mom or I'm with my dad when I notice it, but I'm still just like, you don't know that this is my mom or dad just because we're here together.
Right.
It's like just because we're at a restaurant together doesn't mean this is my parent. I'm an adult.
That's true.
I can date a classy older man.
Might be a job interview. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many different scenarios.
And then another thing that's interesting about Japan is it's okay to praise a woman's outfit, hairstyle, or makeup, but you should not be criticizing a woman's makeup. And then, interestingly, in conservative groups in Japan, not wearing makeup can be considered unhygienic, which is a little different.
Seems a little bass-ackwards there.
Exactly, right? But the thing is, like... I think most countries you don't want to criticize a woman's appearance, a woman's, makeup. And I think oddly enough too, we don't really criticize men or women that much, at least in the United States,
I think it's more acceptable to criticize men's appearances.
Yeah.
But like things like the beer bellies, almost like a sitcom joke at this point.
Right.
So I have one that I think is I think you'd find interesting. So you are obsessed, not obsessed, but we've talked a lot personally, both on and off the podcast, about the difference between Sitzen and Duzen when you're having a conversation, which means using Sie or Du, which is the formal or informal version of you. So, if you're talking to a person of someone that's and a person of authority to you, you're supposed to use Sie. But if you're talking to your friend, you use Du.
Right.
And so, but you kind of have to assume, because, in Germany, even though there is this sort of hierarchy and, respect you give to elderly people, you don't ask them, how old are you? Are you older than me so I can call you Sie or Du? You just kind of make an assumption. And if you don't know, just say Sie.
Right.
And so a lot of countries, obviously plenty of countries, it's rude to ask an age, someone's age, whether it be United States, Indonesia's another one, Sierra Leone. That's naming a few. I'm sure there are a bunch. However, in Vietnam, it's kind of an important question. So they use that to establish that sort
hierarchy.
of how you're going to address them.
Right.
And so that's how they Zietz or Doots someone, is by asking them how old they are.
And I had a student from South Korea in one of my ESL classes, and he told me a similar thing. He said now it's not always super polite to ask women for their age if you're a man.
Right.
But a lot
you don't
of
have
times,
to be so direct about it.
Right. But a lot of times I think the language in which we're surrounded by, there are different parameters and different rules. And so you address people differently based on age. Some of it has to do with culture. Some of it has to do with respect. And so it definitely makes sense to do that. I've been told here in the Czech Republic, it's generally fairly rude to ask a woman for her age, unless, because I asked my students about this, and they said, unless you pull how old are you? You must be, 18, 19, you look so young. It depends how you spin it. Right.
Yeah. No, I get that. But that's, I don't know if that also depends on who you're asking too. Because I think,
of course,
obviously that's flattery, but most people can see right through that sort of flattery.
Sure.
It's like, I see what you're doing here, but come on. Are you married is a harmless question in some places, not harmless in others. Afghanistan, you do not want to ask a woman if she's married. That's very rude.
Right.
In Nigeria, people love to discuss politics and religion. It's not strange to talk about for them to share their opinions on stuff like that. And as we mentioned, some of those topics are sort of the golden three of avoidances of like money, religion, and politics.
Right.
Those are the three you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those are like the big three. So, Jared, I have a list, and I just want to run through it quickly as well. So this is from NBC News, and the headline is "Where You Should Think Before You Speak." So we'll start with the Middle East. And with the Middle East, you have to be very sensitive. Now, I'm getting my information from an article here. I've never been to the Middle East. I do have a lot of friends, though, from Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia.
I was at an airport in Qatar for a couple hours.
There you go. So Jared's actually
and I have been to
expert on
Morocco,
this.
but that's not the Middle East, though. That's Northern Africa.
Right, but I think they still do
The
have
culture
some
is similar.
Exactly. So in Egypt, one thing that apparently, according to NBC News, you should avoid is anything having to do with the position of Jewish people in the world. You may hear conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Another thing in Egypt, you don't want to touch on the lack of democracy.
That's the thing. It's not that you don't want to touch on those topics. Is that if you're a tourist, especially probably an American, you don't want to. The things you hear might make you uncomfortable. I think they're completely comfortable talking about it.
Oh yeah, right. Depending on your
just
views,
you don't want to hear it.
Exactly.
It's like,
and then a big no-no in Egypt would be suggesting peace with Israel as a way to build bridges. The truce is much less popular with the populace, right? And then it's also a bad idea to talk about terrorism in Egypt and its impact on the stability of tourism.
Makes sense.
And then, but the things you can discuss in Egypt are the country's cultural relics and historical importance.
I'm sure they're very proud of that.
And in Egypt, apparently, you can also talk about business. So there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, interesting. So in
Shout
Israel,
out to Don,
the clear one in
spot
Israel.
he needs to hit up.
What?
I said shout out to Don, the next spot he needs to hit up.
There, exactly. So in Israel, the obvious clear one is you want to completely avoid the whole Palestinian conflict.
Right.
You don't want to talk about that. Another thing as well, interestingly enough, you don't want to refer to the security fence, which is under construction, as a wall. Apparently, you don't want to do that.
So that they don't want to make it seem like they're building. It's not a wall. It's just it's the security fence. I've never heard that before.
I haven't either.
Because
so
I guess the wall has a whole different implication.
Right. Now, the things you can talk about in Israel
It's just a simple electrified fence.
Right. The things you can talk about in Israel is how Israel is a thriving democracy and also the quality and the freshness of the food there. I have heard from friends that the food in Israel is absolutely delicious.
I can imagine that.
Right. So now we move on to Jordan. Things you should avoid. Don't discuss honor killings, which I don't know why you would, but there you go. Which have been in the news lately and are a source of shame for many Jordanians. Also, you don't want to criticize Islam, which makes sense. I think you don't want to do that in most Middle Eastern countries. And you also don't want to say anything negative about the Kingdom of Jordan, which is also illegal. But some good things you can talk about are the developments of the country. Interestingly enough, according to this article, the Queen's beauty and interesting cultural aspects of Jordan. So there you go. So now let's move on to the Americas, meaning South America, North America. In Israel, in Argentina, you want to avoid talking about the dirty war of the 1970s, which is still a deep trauma in the nation's psyche. Then you also don't want to discuss the Falklands War, and also don't want to talk about the economic crisis of the last several years. And also another thing, I think this holds true for most South American countries. You don't want to lump Argentina in with all of Latin America, right? Because the thing is about Latin America or South America, every country has its own identity. Also, different dialects of Spanish, different words, different grammatical structures and stuff like that. And so I think it's important that I don't think a lot of International listeners will do this, but I think a lot of Americans tend to lump countries in one continent together. I've heard a lot of Americans call Africa a country, not a continent.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's one thing you want to avoid.
I hear that all the time still. Not necessarily them calling it. I think now, people still do this, but it's usually just like the very unaware and ignorant that are calling it a continent. But people still do say, like, I went to Africa. Like, I hear that in podcasts and stuff. And just in my head, I'm like, I want to know what country you're talking. Like, Could you be a little bit more specific, please?
Right. Africa's huge.
Yeah. That's just an insane thing. It's like I went to Europe, where it's like, I mean, you could name a country. It's like this seems like an odd place to. It just seems like an odd place to leave it at just so vague like that.
Right. And since we already hit Canada, I'll end here with Mexico. So the things that are completely forbidden: don't discuss crime and corruption in Mexico. I wouldn't also talk too much about animal rights, because bullfighting is also popular in Mexico. And the other thing you shouldn't discuss is immigration and illegal immigration going into the U.S. And as we've mentioned with some other countries, Mexico is a very Catholic country. So there are certain religious and social questions that should not be mentioned. But the things you can discuss in Mexico, talking about family seems to be very popular. Mexico's cultural heritage and food, but clearly not Tex-Mex. So be aware what's Tex-Mex and what's authentic Mexican food. And also some familiarity with culture, like quinceañera, for example.
Okay. I just imagine someone like going to like a restaurant in Mexico, being like, oh, "This is good. These fajitas are good, but they're not as good as the Chili's around the corner for me."
Right. All right. And the last country I'd like to end with, Jared.
Go ahead.
We could do this for hours, but I'll end with China, because there's a lot of countries we didn't touch on. But I think most things we've talked about in this main segment apply to numerous countries. But I'll end us today with China. And the things you have to avoid in China are the 3 T's, which are Tibet, Taiwan, and Tiananmen Square. You should not discuss those things in China.
That's hilarious. Just don't talk about anyone. Just talk about us.
Right? Well, I know I have friends from Taiwan, and they have told me that can be a really sore subject around people from mainland China, because if you're from Taiwan, I think a lot of Taiwanese people, to them, Taiwan is its own country, right? However, it is technically a part of China. And so the Chinese people, they believe that Taiwan belongs to them. It's not a separate country. Obviously, in Tiananmen Square, you just don't talk about it with Chinese people.
Right.
I've very stupidly asked some of my Chinese TESOL graduate students what their thoughts were on it, and some of them didn't even really know much about it.
I don't know much about it.
It was when they had there was a protest. I'm not an expert on it either, but there was a protest.
Oh, was that famous picture where the guy
with the tanks?
Okay. And the guy burned himself alive?
I'm not sure if that was in Tiananmen Square.
Okay.
But that's definitely a taboo topic.
So do you think they don't know much about it because their parents never talk about it?
Well, I think the whole country doesn't talk about it.
Oh, okay.
I think it's one of those things where
they don't teach about it either.
Well, of course not, because it's So here we go. So it was 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. Now, in commonly known in mainland China as the June 4th incident, were student-led demonstrations in Beijing, and it refers to the popular national movement inspired by the Beijing protests, called the '89 Democracy Movement. Protests were forcibly suppressed after Chinese Premier Li Peng declared martial law in what became known in the West right here as the Tiananmen Square Massacre. Troops with assault rifles and tanks fired at the demonstrators, trying to block the military's advance towards Tiananmen Square. The number of civilian deaths was internally estimated by the Chinese government to be near or above 10,000. So there you go.
So which means it was probably more than that.
Right. But yeah, so a lot of, and it's something I don't think they really teach or discuss in China. So yeah, so there you go.
I regret pulling up these pictures. It's intense.
It is. So I think we should lighten things up a little bit, Jared, and let's discuss our song of the pod.
Yes. So our song of the pod is by a band called Epic High. They're from South Korea, and I think they originally would have been considered K-pop, but they've grown up. They've been active since. When do you think they've been active since?
I'd say the 90s.
2001 is what Wikipedia said.
Okay.
I heard about them when I lived in Germany. I had a Korean friends, and some of them listened to Epic High, and I would listen to some random songs. I was like, oh, this is kind of catchy, and so literally today I was preparing for this podcast, and I had asked you if what the time difference was, if it had changed yet, and you said, yeah, it has. And I noticed, obviously, it hadn't. So that means I had an extra hour. I was ready an hour before. And so it just came to my mind. I was like, I hadn't listened to this band in forever. And I pulled up, which I believe this is their newest album.
Okay.
Sleepless in ... That's what it's, or Sleepless in _ I guess you would say, is what it's titled. And I found myself digging it more than I thought I would. They got like this sort of slow hip-hop thing going on. So they're Korean, Seoul. They're from Seoul, Korea. They're full Korean. But this song, and this seems like most of this album is in English. And
I love the vibes of it.
Me too. It's real chill.
Let's tell our listeners, though, what is actually the title of the song?
Oh, yeah. The title of the song is No Different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's featuring Yuna. Do you know where Yuna's from?
I don't know anything about this group.
Yuna, who also has a lovely voice, is from Malaysia.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you got a really international...
Yeah, which is the goal here at the Untranslatable podcast.
You better believe it.
We're not just bringing you a bunch of Americans. We like to switch it up, get all around the world.
Oh, definitely.
And go ahead. Sorry, I like the song. It's just it's a great song. I do too.
It definitely, like, when
R&B
I listen to this song,
sound.
Right, I could see myself like listening to this as like in the background when I'm just trying to relax, or like maybe doing some stuff around the apartment.
That's what I was doing today.
And I really like the lyrics. You say I've changed, I'm acting strange. You say I've changed, and I feel like someone that you don't know. I feel like this is, one, it's well written. Mm-hmm. Two, I think it's very, very relatable for almost everybody. I'm curious though, Jared, what does the word dolo mean? So they say I'm acting strange, doing things we used to do on the dolo. What is dolo?
I think that means like doing it solo now. It's a very. I'm familiar with it. I'm gonna consult the Urban Dictionary.
There we go. See, I've heard the term dolo from Kid Cudi. Solo dolo is what he says.
Alone. Yeah, it means alone.
Okay.
So it's like, that's what he's saying. Doing stuff that we used to do on the dolo. So doing stuff that we used to do by myself now.
Is it by myself or both of us together alone?
To do some activity by oneself, as in to do solo or done solo. I'm smoking this Rillo all by myself. I'm smoking this Rillo on the dolo.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right.
You're really gonna sit here in front of me and smoke dolo? This is the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
This is not my example.
Right. I have to say though, I think the lyrics are really well written. Like I really like the line, and I think this hits home for anybody who has changed and grown apart from a loved one. And it's a sad experience, but it's a part of life. And I really like the lines. I miss your smile and laugh. We tried to build a future. All we got's a broken past. Not much of me is left. But I promise if you come back, I might not be the one. Could you settle for half? So it's really deep.
Yeah.
And it's really well written by a group that, English, I'm assuming, is not their native language.
Right. I don't want to make any assumptions, but I wonder if they had writers. And I don't know anything about them. But I do know they're a very popular, gigantic band.
Right.
So I don't know. But yeah, whoever wrote it, whether I'm not as far as we know, is Epic High, and I like it. I'm glad that I re-stumbled upon this, because I bet you I'll listen to it a little bit more, especially since at least this song will be on our Untranslatable Podcast YouTube playlist. So I'll definitely listen to that song again.
Oh, for sure. So check that out. It's a very chill, awesome song. Epic High. No
K.
different. Yes, with a K. No Different featuring Yuna. It's a fantastic song. If you're looking for those laid-back, chill vibes, or if you're looking to reminisce on some past relationships, give it a listen, and we hope you enjoy. Well, Jared, you're lucky. Now I'm not going to be testing you on Czech anymore since you are not here.
Oh, man.
Until the unforeseeable future. I mean, we can.
We'll do a little bit. We won't do it as
right.
much. But I want to hear this Czech word for today.
So I figured today, since we were talking about a lot of... Well, I won't give it away, although this is a cognate, so I'm sure you'll get it. But the Czech word of the pod today is konversace.
No idea.
Are you,
No, I'm kidding.
I was about to say, I was like, are you really serious right now? Konversace.
I'm assuming that's conversation.
Very good. It is.
Konversace. I'm surprised. I haven't heard many Czech to English. What's the
Cognates?
word? Cognates.
Cognates.
I always want to say false cognate.
Right. Well, see, it's weird. I think a lot of words like the Asian words, or Asian words, Asian or Asian, some of the words are similar. And they have that ace ending in Czech.
Oh, that's their ION.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah,
okay.
Konversace today. Since we are talking about taboo conversation topics, I figured that would be a good one.
Taboo konversace.
Exactly. I don't know what they say for taboo. I'll have to ask my colleagues or my students. So Jared, now let's test you real quick. What are some Czech words you remember?
Dobrý den. Prosím.
You tell our listeners what these mean.
Dobrý den is good day. Ahoy is.
And you're getting the R better. It sounds good. It sounds smooth.
Prosím is please. Pivo is beer.
Yep.
Jídlo is food.
Yep.
Děkuji is thank you.
Oh, very good. Mluvite anglicky.
That's do you speak English?
Yep.
It's hard on the spot like this. Jak se máš is how are you?
Do you remember how to say another round?
Oh man.
That's an important one.
But what I do remember, I'll come back to that one. Zaplate mi prosím is the Czech way to say bill please.
Wow, very good.
Instead of using účet prosím.
I'm impressed. Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm learning some shit
Zaplate mi
over
prosím. I guess so.
Another round was I remember. Ještě jedlo.
Very close. Ještě jedno.
Ještě jedno. Okay.
And it was
Ještě
hilarious.
jedno.
Today in class, I was playing a game with my students, and they finished the game pretty quick. And so first in English, I said, all right, another round. They're like, okay. And I said, ještě jedno. You should have seen the look on their faces. It was priceless.
Oh, man. Ještě jedno.
It was really funny. They perked up. They're like, wait, did he just say what I think he did?
Yeah, I think I'm picking up some stuff, though.
You definitely
it's sticking a little bit.
And I'm really curious. We'll have to do a segment, after I've been out of the Czech Republic for maybe 5 or 6 months, and see what I still remember, because I have an idea of certain words I'll retain. I'll retain the basics, please, thank you, hello, but I'm curious to see what I'll remember and what I won't. So we'll have to do that in the future.
Yeah.
Well, great job, Jared.
Thank you.
You definitely deserve a ham horn or a parada as well. So, Jared, now it's time for some jokes. So, Jared, why did the taxi driver get fired?
What's that?
Because it turns out his customers didn't appreciate it when he tried to go the extra mile. Okay, so
I feel that way sometimes about lifts that I get into that have like the lights and stuff.
right.
I know that's not the joke, but I like, where they try to go the metaphorical extra mile with all the bells and whistles, and I'm like, just drive, just get me there at a timely fashion and have a clean car. You don't need to. I don't need the karaoke in the back seat.
Exactly.
10-minute
That's
drive.
true. All right, here we go, Jared. I got 2 more for you.
Okay.
And these 2 might be considered a little taboo, depending on the culture you're in, which is why I picked them.
Slipping on gator piss.
So why did the man take Viagra for his sunburn?
Why is that?
It doesn't cure his sunburn, but it keeps the bed sheets off of his legs at night.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right? All right, and the last
It's
one.
like a dad joke.
It is. It's a dirty dad joke.
It is a dirty dad joke. That's a gross sentence in itself.
That is. All
Dirty
right, Jared,
dad.
my last one for you. How many friend zone guys does it take to change a light bulb?
I have no idea.
None. They just compliment it and get mad that when it won't screw.
You're not that bright anyway. Whatever.
Ooh, that was good. That was good. All right. So those are our jokes of the pod for this episode for our taboo conversation topics. And now it's time to sum up our episode with a quote. And I think, to be honest with you, yes, there's a lot of good things you can learn from this episode. But I think the best rule of thumb tends to be, and Jared can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think whenever you're in a new culture, the best way to figure out which conversation topics are taboo or not, one is to listen carefully, two is to observe, and as we say in English, do as the Romans do, meaning just act how people there are acting. You know, I've heard people in the Czech Republic discuss politics, which means then I feel comfortable being able to talk about politics. I don't hear Czechs talk about how much they personally earn. Sure, I have heard Czechs complain about low wages, which I think it's okay if you also want to chime in and be like, yeah, I agree with you. But it wouldn't be something then that I would take it upon myself to say, oh, well, you're complaining about low wages. What wage do you make? You know, that would be a definite bad idea. So, you know, be culturally sensitive, be aware. And as I mentioned, 1, listen, 2, observe, and 3, do as the Romans do or do as the locals do.
Výborný.
So there we go. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode today and you've learned some new taboo conversation topics. And on top of that, you have also learned some things you can touch on when you visit certain countries. If you have any insider tips about any taboo conversation topics or topics that are great conversation starters in different cultures and countries, please let us know.
You betcha.
Shoot us an email at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com, untranslatable1 on Twitter, or you can slide into our Instagram DMs at untranslatablepodcast. Check out some of our pictures of our different shenanigans and whatnot. We also have some good clips on there. A big shout out to Jared for all the amazing work he does for our podcast.
You betcha.
I really appreciate it, and I know our listeners also really appreciate it. So we look forward to bringing you some new and exciting episodes in the near future. So keep your eyes and ears out for those. You can find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify.
Spread a little love.
Basically, if you Google Untranslatable Podcast, you will find us somewhere, no doubt. And we really appreciate all of our listeners coming from all around the world. I believe we're over 9 different countries now around the world, which is such a pleasure to us. We really appreciate it. And we send all of our love, laid-back vibes, and good vibes to all of you around the world. And as we say here on the Untranslatable Podcast, Děkujeme.